good morning, everyone. This is Tarun Walia from EMA Partners. I welcome you all for this leadership series that we have. And today, our guest is the esteemed Mr. Sharad Tyagi, who is the country manager and managing director for Boehringer Ingelheim, India. He's been with the company for the last 11 years. He's also the current president of OPPI, and we welcome him today. And I would let Sharad introduce himself for all of you.
Good morning. Thank you, Tarun, for the opportunity and for the introduction. Uh, just a quick brief about myself. My name is Sharad Tyagi. I've been now working for around 35 years. I started my career with a company called ICI. Was with them for about 11 years, looking at specialty chemicals in diverse industries. Then moved on to a US company called Ingelheim, which was a pioneer in environmental technologies and catalysis technologies. Built their presence here in India 1996 onwards, and then I moved to DRL, and that was my first stint in pharma between 2007 and 2009. I was head of their API sales and marketing business, and now for the last 11 years with Boehringer Ingelheim, heading their Indian operations. So thank you again, Tarun, for the opportunity, and look forward to the conversation.
So thank you so much, Sharath, for that very nice overview. I realized that you've been recently elected as the president for OPPI. One of the first things I would love to understand is, I know OPPI is doing a lot of activities in the background, and that's like the backbone for the pharmaceutical producers in India. Can you just describe for our audience in a brief the major activities that you do at OPPI?
Right. So OPPI represents the interests of the innovator companies in the world, the companies which are the leading innovation companies in the pharmaceutical industry. So in all our focus areas, innovation becomes the backdrop of what we do. So our focus is on ensuring that we work with the government, we do our advocacy with the government, we also work closely with the Indian industries to see how we can foster an environment in the country on innovation. And of course, IP, intellectual property, is a big part of innovation. So naturally, some of our advocacy efforts are towards ensuring that IP protection in the country is
Right.
there. It is encouraged, and we believe that ultimately for India to really grow and move on from its current situation to becoming a world leader in the industry like the pharmaceutical industry, innovation has to become a backbone.
That's a very interesting point, Sharad, you mentioned, because I see that there is a lot of talent when it comes to both chemistry side as well as biologic side in India. We have the prowess when it comes to manufacturing. We understand the clinical trial details, and with OPPI and other organizations pushing IP as well. But when you see the market out there, it's majorly dependent on generics and biosimilars. Why is it so? Why don't we have so much biologics of our own? Why don't we have those innovator molecules of our own in India?
So, see, traditionally, the innovation in pharmaceuticals, like in many other areas, has come out of the West, specifically out of the US and certain areas in Europe. And these have been the leading pharmaceutical companies. And over the years, they have built their capacity to continue to invest. And when I say invest, it's not just about financial resources, it's also about investing in their scientific capabilities.
Right.
India historically had been what we call a process patent country, which means that the Indian industry grew up with a kind of scientific expertise in ensuring that they did not violate process patents, whereas product patents could be,
Got
accessed.
it.
And the kind of expertise that has been built, and that also has certain element of innovation in it, because process patents, also represent a certain amount of IP expertise as well as intellectual expertise. And
Right.
Indian companies have become really good at that. But the focus so far had been on tapping even the US markets, European markets, and even Indian markets after the expiry of the patent. And that has been able to build up a very robust business model. I think now onwards, it is a natural progression that some of the biggest Indian companies would be looking at becoming innovators. I know that many of them do have plans, many
Right.
of them do have a focus on innovation. There is a desire to be there. It will need a lot of effort from a perspective of building that capability and building the risk taking capability as well. We know that bringing in any new molecule is a huge investment and it has a risk in it. You attempt 20, 30 innovation products and then you may come out with a few, and that kind of a financial risk capability is something probably that Indian companies will now get into. I think India is poised to get there. So it has been about the life cycle that the industry has been.
Right.
Uh, with the new age molecules also, if you're looking at the future, when we're talking about rare diseases, we're talking about biologics, that's
Absolutely.
going to be a very different ball game altogether. And I
Hmm.
believe Indian companies will have to start looking at how they can bring in innovation in these areas, maybe partnering with global companies, maybe developing it on their own, because to call them Indian companies at times is also a misnomer, because many of them are global companies.
Right.
Many of them have manufacturing outside India. They have their research facilities outside India as well. So, in a true sense, they are global companies of Indian origin. I think they will get there. It will just be a matter of who is first in that race. But I have great hopes that if we can successfully improve the innovation climate in India, we
Hmm.
have expertise, we have a lot of good scientific background, we have really good people. That should happen.
You picked orphan diseases and biologics, and so when you talk about the West and compare it to India, there's a major role that the payers are playing, right? So if you talk about some of these drugs with Alexion, and some of these niche drugs with Gilead and other diseases for other diseases, they cost somewhere north of say $300,000
Right.
for treatment. So how do you think India can, elevate its game when it comes to the payer side of it? Do you think Ayushman Bharat will have a role to play? How do you think we can, like, elevate our game in that direction?
So Ayushman Bharat is an excellent start. I think the vision, the concept behind it is robust. It is what we need. Because remember that in India, the pricing of drugs
Right.
catches so much attention because largely it is out of pocket.
Mm,
You and I go and meet a private doctor and he prescribes some medicine, then we go and we buy it ourselves. In
right.
most of the mature markets, there is a payer or a co-payer, which could be
Hmm.
insurance companies, which could be the national health system, which could be the government itself. There are several ways that health is taken care of in mature markets.
Right.
Ayushman Bharat is a step towards that.
Hmm.
Now, I would call it Ayushman Bharat 1.0 because it is starting point. It is still focused on what I would call as critical care about in-hospital procedures. It's talking about interventions which are expensive. It doesn't yet talk about OPDs and it doesn't talk about medicine coverage when someone is not hospitalized. I believe that should be the next direction where you keep expanding the scope to
Hmm.
cover the overall healthcare of the people. and
Interesting.
and at some point of time, I believe India is an extraordinarily attractive market for insurance companies to up their presence here.
Hmm.
Because remember, when you're talking about rare diseases, you're talking about a very low percentage of population who
Right.
could have that. But if the costs are so high and an insurance plan can take care of it, you are going to be able to spread that risk over a large number of your insurance customers and be
Absolutely.
still be able to offer that. And I think when we are going ahead in India, the healthcare system maturity has to come as a public private partnership. The
Mm,
government can't do it alone, people can't do it alone, and insurance companies can't do it alone. There has
mm,
to be a very cohesive plan which tells you which are the areas where, say, the government will cover. It could be the primary healthcare, it could be certain hospitalization procedures for a certain
right.
class of people, but the affording class should be able to afford insurance policies which will cover
Mm,
such eventualities. We know that already there are certain policies which say give you a certain cover on cancer or on similar
right.
other diseases, but at the end of the day, we have to continue to be able to progress where it's not about an individual affording a drug. It is about how the country as a whole
Mm,
can get that affordability of really high quality and state of art treatment to the people. So,
excellent.
so, so we often take this in the wrong direction by saying the drugs are too expensive. The
Right.
drugs are as expensive as it is to develop them.
Mm,
Okay. It is about how can someone afford it. If I don't have to pay it out of my pocket,
exactly. Yeah.
I think that is what should be the focus here. And
Absolutely.
Ayushman Bharat is a step in the direction for a certain class of population who have obviously very low affordability, but
Mm,
we still have over 50% of the population, the, sometimes they're not included in Ayushman Bharat. And we need to start seeing how they can come into the ambit. So I believe it has got to be a mix of a co-pay model with insurance companies, with the government, and that has to be the way ahead. When you talk of rare diseases, the the thing is that a lot of them are very less in their incidence, but the impact is devastating.
yeah.
And the natural progression, if you see what is healthcare about over the last 40, 50 years, 60 years, since independence, about 80 years, our average lifespan in India has moved from under 50 years to now closing in towards 70 years. A
Yeah.
natural progression would be taken towards 80 years, 90 years, etc. And that means being able to take care of all those diseases which come with an increasing lifespan, which come with an increased age, which
Right.
move towards a lot of these diseases, especially cancer and other rare diseases. So I see it
Hence,
as a natural progression.
yeah. No, I mean, and thanks for answering that. And the prevalence and incidence of even the CNS disease is likely to increase as the average age is going up, the ADs, the Parkinson's disease, and all of that. So, thanks so much for that. The next thing I had in mind, Sharad, was the million-dollar question that everyone has on mind right now. What's the future with COVID-19? I mean, do you think the vaccines which are in trial, when do you see that we can see a light at the end of the tunnel? How is it reshaping the industry? Some people suggest that it's something that's never going away and we'll have to live with it. Some people suggest that no, this is something that, so no one has the answer. But what's your take on it, and how do you think that the Indian pharma would be adapting to it?
Right. So this is my personal take on it. I cannot say it represents my organization's view or OPPI's view, but this is my personal take on
Sure.
it. When COVID hit us, it hit us like a ton of brick. Okay, no one knew what to do. The healthcare systems all over the world were caught unprepared.
Right.
If you look at it in a simple way, what was happening was that the number of critical patients which should normally come into a healthcare system over a year were
Mm,
probably coming in over a period of a month.
right.
Okay, so which completely overwhelmed the system.
Right.
Now, as the cases in most countries are reducing, now as the cases in even India are plateauing, hopefully, what's also happening is that the hospitals, the healthcare givers, the doctors, there has been a furious pace at which they have understood certain elements of the disease. There is a way that we are able to take care of it better. If you see, even in India, the fatality rate has been dropping down from close to about 3% to coming down to close to 2% now, which
Mm,
essentially means that A, we are catching it early in terms of diagnosis, more testing, and
right.
also being able to treat it better so that at least if you're not able to prevent the disease, you're able to prevent the fatality around it.
Right.
So over a period of time, as much more data is analyzed on the patients, on the hospitalization by all doctors, all the hospitals around the world, we will understand more about how to manage the disease if someone gets it.
Makes
Next
sense.
stage, next stage is there is a huge number of trials going on about trying to see which of the existing drugs
Right.
could have a beneficial effect, at least in managing the disease, if not being able to completely cure it.
Right.
The third would be the vaccine. That's
Mm,
going to be the ultimate cure. Now, the problem with vaccines, which all the experts say, is that you do not know until it really gets proven. Okay,
yeah.
a phase one or a in vitro trial is not going to tell you whether it is safe,
Yeah.
how well efficacious it is. If you get a vaccine which has got a 50% efficacy, is it worth using it? A lot of those questions will be asked and answered. So I would not hazard a guess that even if a vaccine comes in, will it be able to completely rid the world of COVID 19? So
Mm,
I believe that all countries, all healthcare systems, all companies have to look at the fact that COVID 19 will be here to stay in some form or the other.
mm,
At the best, it may become like, let's say, tuberculosis, where you know the disease, you know your enemy, you know
yeah.
how to manage it, you
Right.
will take certain care. I mean, in India, tuberculosis is still rampant.
Yes.
Many of us are carriers, we are carriers, but we are not impacted by it, but we are still
Right.
carriers.
Right.
Now, I'm also hoping that if people genuinely take the change in our lifestyles as a permanent change. And when I say lifestyle, I'm talking about wearing masks,
Mm.
washing hands, taking care at least. Let's say in future there's no need to wear mask, but if people become sensitive to using a hanky when they sneeze or cough, not attend offices when they are mildly sick. In India we have had this great pride. I'm very sick, but still I'm going to work. It's a
Right.
kind of a sign of commitment. Today
Yeah.
it is a sign of being insensitive to your other colleagues.
Exactly.
So
Exactly.
hopefully, all these lifestyle and our attitude changes will come in, which will make the spread of the disease, even if it survives, much lesser. And I'm a very big optimist in this, that by end of this year we would know how to manage it if there is another outbreak. Because remember, what people are saying is there'll be another cycle.
Yeah.
I'm very optimistic that if there is another cycle, we will catch it early and we will know how to deal with it.
Better prepared.
If the vaccine is coming in by next year and it is greatly effective, wonderful. Nothing better than that. But you know how we do in business planning? You have your worst case scenario and you have your best case. Your best case is vaccine. Your
Right.
worst case is that the disease never goes away and you have to learn how to live with it.
Extremely well put, Sharad. I mean, that's a wonderful analogy that you gave. So when we talk about these worst case, best case, and the median scenario, Sharad, there is a lot of impact that it also comes on the business plans of companies and also on the job markets, right?
Right.
So what are the major roles, Sharad, that you see when you look at the next 5 years per se? What are the major roles where you see there may be a dearth of leaders, or what are the areas which will emerge in the next 5 years where people can focus on when it comes to gaining more understanding, when it comes to job opportunities? What are those areas, I would say?
The biggest area to put under a very broad umbrella is technology.
Hmm.
Okay. Now, whether you take healthcare, whether you take pharmaceuticals, you take diagnostics, you take hospitals, wherever you see, it's all about technology.
Right.
Now, the applications of the technology are going to be wide and varied. We tend to think technology from an ambit of consumer products. We talk about digital applications. We talk about mobile phones, etc., etc.
Hmm.
Those are just the tools with which the technology is going to be used. But at
Hmm.
the end of the day, it is going to be the biggest opportunity on how do you use these emergent technologies for
Hmm.
improving the lives on a daily basis.
Hmm.
And I think that is where India also has the ability to be really up ahead. I know that there are so many startups in India using
Right.
in healthcare,
Hmm.
and let's focus on healthcare. Now, whether it's about early diagnostics, that's a very favorite topic of mine. How
Hmm.
early can you diagnose a specific disease?
Right.
Even amongst the existing chronic diseases, there's a lot of focus on diabetes, on cardiac issues,
Right.
and similarly on COVID. If you had at the end of the day a kind of a home test which someone can take every time they came out of a risky, let's
Hmm.
say, expedition.
Yeah.
No, fantastic. It's just the way you can measure your blood pressure. Can you come back, dip a bit of blood on a strip, and then you say that okay, you're COVID negative, and you do it every day for the next 1 week.
Nice.
And I'm quite sure that there are a lot of tech companies which will be focusing on such issues and such topics. So if I look at the opportunities, they have to reside in tech in any sector. No sector is immune to it, and it is not about technology taking away jobs. There's always been the fear about a new technology taking away jobs, but
Hmm.
historically we have seen that a new technology also throws up opportunities for new jobs. So what will happen is you will have a shift in jobs and you will have a shift in skill requirements from one area to the other.
Perfect. That's so good to hear, Sharad. And hopefully, the pharma, which has been little averse to technology over the last few years, I would say finally take it as something that they have to do over the next few years. As a final note, Sharad, is there anything specific that you would like to highlight or mention our for the healthcare and the pharma fraternity, as a note over to how to tackle this crisis? We all are handling it together. Is there a final note you would like to mention to our audience here?
Yes, I would like to say that every pharma industry, every pharmaceutical company and leader should understand that, as they say, it has to begin at home. Okay, which means that we have to ensure that we take care of our employees extremely well. I
Hmm.
believe that this is a crisis which should not be really resulting in losses of jobs. It's a crisis where it is the time to show empathy towards our employees, because remember, people have so many worries at home right now.
Right.
They're worried about their children, they're worried about their own jobs, they're worried about their loans they may have taken, etc. As much as possible, as organizations, we have to drive towards ensuring that the employees feel cared for and are there in a state where you are taking care of them and making sure that as you deal with the crisis, you are helping them deal with the crisis as well. Because at the end of the day, it is going to be always all about people.
That's
That's the topmost thought in my mind, actually.
No, I mean, Sharad, that's very, very lovely to hear from you. That's such a noble and a nice thought because, and I feel this is the time when companies can show that empathy and be, very close to the employees as well as the families of employees to make sure, when the market is back, when everything is back, then they also return the favor that or the trust that the company displayed in them. So it's
Absolutely.
really, really good to hear the thoughts that you have here, Sharad.
Thank you.
So I want to thank you from my side and from my company EMA Partners side. This is part of the leadership series, and thanks again for being part of our panel today.
Thanks a lot. Thanks, Tarun. Very nice talking to you.
Thanks
Bye
so
bye.
much, Sharad.